Hola, humanos. Hola, humanos. Hello, humans. Hello, humans. Saturday, January 3rd, 9:38 a.m. Not raining right at this instant. Just pouring, though, in general. Interesting day. So, I've seen some level of the people freaking out about Trump taking out the Venezuela narco cartel boss, the illegitimate president of their country, the guy who was voted out years ago. I think it was, 2023? And he just sort of refused to leave, and he and his narco buddies took over. Well, a lot of the people that are freaking out, they're blah, 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 he invaded a sovereign nation, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, he hasn't, right? And they have to understand that we're in this new world. And what we're seeing now is the emerging strategy that the emerging strategy that the Trump people are going to pursue. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense to, for instance, go through the United States and arrest a bunch of crooked politicians if you're hundreds of thousands of people in the United States every year at the behest of the CCP. Yeah, they're polluting our society. There's so much corruption going through Venezuela, you can't imagine. Plus, it's also a huge funding source for the narco cartels because now they own the oil industry there. And it just goes on and on and on, right? And so it was a strategic move. Why should he work, Trump, and the FBI and all these guys, why should they work so hard to remove all of the corrupt politicians and corrupt judges if there's just another round coming in the midterms? I want to say 52 years ago or something, when they started moving in the machines, and the CCP was already in the machines, taking over control. Now it's just so automated, it's unreal. But so here's the way it's going to roll out, though. Trump's move was strategic. He took out the titular head of the cartel, the guy that the heavyweight, the El Jefe, right? But he understands it's the Chinese that are running it. When the Chinese embassy was there, or ambassador guy was there, their emissaries were there doing deals. And that's why he chose that moment strategically. And that's why they removed Maduro and the missus that way. It was a strategic move. It was to show these guys what the fuck's going on. Now look at the follow-on. They've got him. He's going to sing like a bird. They'll find out every fucking thing they want to know about who he was dealing with, all of this kind of stuff. And now in Venezuela, you can be quite sure that there are trained individuals setting up to do forensic accounting of all kinds of records that are now coming in the hands of the populace as they reclaim the country. So now there's actually going to be less work for Trump to do here in the United States. And why is that? Because of the strategic roll-on. And that is, as the Venezuelans reclaim their country and dig into the last 40 years of dirt there and corruption and all of that kind of stuff, they will come on out. You'll start seeing videos coming out as they say, hey guys, look, you people in Taiwan. And thus, now Trump doesn't face a massive backlash for removing people, especially judges, who are shown to have been put in place by a corrupt narco cartel. They're effectively tainted. And so as for judges and politicians and stuff, why should we listen to them? Like this dim-witted woman that they're saying is the mayor of Seattle. Why listen to her at all? She lives with her parents and relies on them for money, and she was put there by the Venezuelan narco cartel. So that she'd be so weak that any of the stuff they wanted done would be done. Now we're coming out of this. Now Trump has moved strategically, and the narco cartel is essentially neutralized at that level. Plus, he's now effectively stopped, like shut off, the fentanyl conduit through Venezuela, as well as the 7-OH and all this other stuff. And if you're not clued into 7-OH, you should check your own communities. That stuff is fucking deadly. And anyway, so this is all those conduits are cut off. Doesn't mean the stuff's stopping, because China's coming in from Canada. They're coming in through the West Coast. That's why they desperately wanted the West Coast governorships, right? So that these governors would be told to stand down and interfere with federal enforcement and interdiction of drugs and all of this kind of deal, which they did, for 40, 50 years now. And so we're into this new world. It's starting off with a bang. I'm happy as hell, because now maybe the citizens of Washington State can reclaim their ability to vote, right? The sanctity of elections. And hopefully we'll find we'll have the voting machines, the whole voting machine industry, destroyed by this one move, right? Because soon the Venezuelans will be saying to everybody, except for the Russians and a few of the others, they'll be saying, look, we've got all their records, we got their IP addresses, we got the IP addresses of every one of your voting machines, and yada, 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 yada. Such that a technician like myself would be able to look at it and say, yeah, dude, you got the goods. Anyway, so much for the people that are saying that Trump's starting a war, or all of this kind of stuff, right? So that's part of the roll-on here. I expect that Bibi and a lot of the Israelis are shitting bricks now. Other excuses to drop out of politics. You'll see a lot of that kind of stuff here in the United States too, as people that know they're on the arrest list will try and get the fuck out of public visibility to try and delay that, right? So we'll see a lot of strange resignations, in my opinion. Strange resignations of people in power, to the point that it may be that there's like whole county, district, and state superior court areas, and because this will come out, right? So people's names will be named, and they'll come on out and say, oh, look, from Venezuela, they'll say, oh, this judge, the cartel gave. What's going to happen then when they start saying that? There's no reason to disbelieve them at all. And the judge will flip out. He'll start screaming bloody murder, because he knows that he's guilty. He knows he was put into power illegally by the corrupt machine, and now he's tainted. And there's going to be shunning, right? So, if I worked around such a person, it was starting to become out widely known that this guy was in power in his office illegally. Boy, I wouldn't be caught talking to the bastard if I didn't have to. And even if I had to, I'd be very circumspect in what I told him, and, be wary as fuck. Because I'm an evil bastard, I would constantly remind him, you're being watched. The FBI's got eyes on you. That kind of shit, just to annoy him and cause him bodily discomfort from the anxiety and the fear. Prompt things along. But like I say, I'm an evil bastard. Anyway, so this is the kind of thing I'm expecting to happen here. For some reasons, I expect we'll have some more law enforcement activity. I think next Wednesday. I think it'll be here in the United States. It could be that it's the beginning of this process of the roll-on. That is to say that maybe next Wednesday they bring out all the formal charges and stuff and start laying out, the administration, and they start laying out the vast amount of documents that were procured as a result of snagging the cartel's illegitimate El Jefe pretending to be president of Venezuela. And so at that point, that starts off the shitstorm, the actual, shitstorm for the people that are involved in this on the illegal side, because then it's now being exposed. And so the whole world's going to be told, you're a criminal fucker, you're not really a judge, you're not really a governor, that, you stole 960,000, blah, 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 blah. And that's going to quickly erode. It won't get rid of them. There are going to be all kinds of disruptions and stuff, but it removes any claim to moral superiority that they may have. And so now any of the Democrats that are freaking out about this, it's like, hey, fuck you. You know, your party 100% was illegally in place. There's no, in my opinion, none anywhere in the whole fucking country. And so am I going to pay attention to a Democratic official? No. You know. So anyway, so we'll see how this all unfolds. But as I say, hey, you know, good on you to the Trumpitos. You know, it was a brilliant move. It also, as I was saying in the beginning, is a indication of strategy and how things are going to happen, and it's elegant. Very, very, very elegant way to proceed, because the other way to go would be to start at the bottom and work your way up, which is the usual way that law enforcement does things, right? And in the end of the day, with that usual approach, none of the guys at the top ever get thrown in jail or anything happening to them, because you know you work your way up maybe 2/3 and the whole social order is just tired of it all, and the energy to keep pursuing it usually goes away, or they find like one or two people high enough up to satisfy the public lust for blood equaling justice, instead of justice. And everybody stops at that level. So this is an idea that, you know, this coming from the top down and causing this particular kind of cascade, and then also the strategic move of getting the linchpin in all of these, in lots of these different plots, right? So Venezuela ran the run, or I don't know, okay, so they don't control it. They're doing what they're told by the Communist Chinese Party, which is in its own deep level of shit. I mean, they're freaking out themselves. They're probably not long for, maybe the CCP won't last another 10 years on their own, just going to collapse. Anyway, though, they ran the voting scheme stuff, all kinds of drugs, you know, all kinds of drugs. Also tainting pharmaceuticals. They also bought into all kinds of companies, and they've been manipulating the stock market. And so I'm expecting a fairly large stock market downturn globally as we start going through all of this stuff, but it's going to be part of the general overall financial reset, right? So I'm not particularly worried about any of that. I think we're on a very good path. It's going to be a rough couple of years, but we're going to, we'll be stronger when we come out, and this is good. The Venezuelans also ran oil schemes where they would have 2 or 3 boats all have the same name, tankers, and they would fill them up and truck them around and do stuff, right? It's a manipulation of the oil the way that people had been manipulating the silver. The Venezuelans were hugely involved with human trafficking, and it just goes on and on and on. So they hit a level of corruption very high up, okay? And this is causing a whole series of cascades that we're going to see ripple down through our society. And maybe something like 2/3 of all the money you've ever paid in taxes went to cover corruption. And so, maybe our society is ever so much more efficient than we even imagine. And we'll see as we go through this economic, I don't want to say reset, transition. It's an economic transition. Every so often, the United States has a currency crisis, and we transit out of one currency to another. So we've had the original Revolutionary War, constitutional dollars. We've had the Civil War, Lincoln's dollars. And then we're now in the Federal Reserve dollars. There was the first American Central Bank. There was the second American Central Bank that they got rid of after Lincoln. And now we're going to get rid of the Federal Reserve. I'm not particularly worried about the idea that they're going to try and foist off on you central bank digital dollars. They will, but I don't think it's going to succeed. Here's why. So the FDIC, the Federal Depository Insurance Corporation that supposedly insures all of the money you have in the bank, really only has assets, and even then they're dealing in Federal Reserve dollars, but they only have assets to cover maybe 1 or 2% of all of the small depositors, and the small depositor would be someone up to, I think, 225,000 is the limit they've set. And even then, they're not going to be able to cover those 1 or 2% and make them whole. Though maybe they would get 20 cents on a dollar in a banking crash, right? And we're heading for a banking crash, but it's not going to be the way that these people think. And I'll explain in a minute. But okay, so the FDIC though might make a deal with the Federal Reserve and say, you give us enough money to cover everybody's deposits in central bank digital currency, and we'll hand it out to everybody, and then everybody would be made whole. So you'd have an opportunity to get the money that you had in the bank that's now worthless, get it in the form of a central bank digital currency, and they'd give you like a credit card or something, right? And but then they control you just the way the Chinese do, and everybody understands that. Also, there's this hidden aspect of that. It wouldn't be worth anything. Sure, the goods, you go to the convenience store, go online, and things would be priced in central bank digital currencies, but you're going to find that there's effectively not very much in the way of sales of it, because there will be a real money rules rule, all right? And so it'll be the same as it'll be our form of the Weimar Republic hyperinflation when and if they do that, and it will collapse fairly quickly. And so maybe within a couple of months, it'd have absolutely no value, and even Amazon wouldn't take it. Although initially Amazon will be told they'll have to reprice everything on their platform in, Federal Reserve digital dollars, right? Anyway, so, but it would be because real money would rule. So at that stage of a transition, you would find indeed that people with real silver and real gold would be able to go on in and buy stuff, and it would be delivered to them rather than to you. Even though you had thought you'd purchased it with your Federal Reserve digital dollars, central bank digital bucks, maybe 3 weeks out, you'd have to call them and say, well, what's going on, guy? And they say, oh, well, blah, 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 we can't get it to you. We never debited your card, that kind of thing. And, maybe it was a car, right? And the car had been delivered to somebody that was willing to come on up and say, clink, 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 here's some gold, right? Or here's a 10-ounce silver bar from Beyond Mystic and JC's channel. And, I'll give you this 10-ounce silver bar for whatever, right? Buy that trailer or whatever you're attempting to purchase. And so under those circumstances, it'll be just like the Weimar Republic, where people would have vast quantities of money in a, paper money in a wheelbarrow, literally had wheelbarrows that they would use to take the money down to spend it. And then ultimately, of course, they would just burn the money because they had it and they needed to burn it. They couldn't afford wood or coal. And so in this instance, though, we won't even be able to burn the digital bucks. So who knows how that will go, but pretty soon people just won't accept them. Lots of small merchants won't, where they have a base, a local base. So it'll be the big guys like Amazon and the online guys that are sort of forced to sell that way, and then they'll rapidly approach bankruptcy because they have, no one will so they sell you that swing set for your kid in Federal Reserve digital dollars, and but no one will sell them a replacement in Federal Reserve digital dollars. And so they'll have to pony up real stuff. They'll have to get some silver or gold or whatever, right? And so it will be a big problem. Back in the day, like in the early 2000s, the data sets had said that we would reach this point of a giant crisis as all this shit came unwound, and that we would be offered the populace would end up being offered three replacements to the Federal Reserve dollar. And these replacements would be disposed of pretty quickly in the sense that they wouldn't be taken up by the populace. And then we would settle on a backed currency, which is to say probably something like the BRICS. That is a basket, but it wouldn't be convertible. right? So you wouldn't be able to go in and claim your 2 ounces of copper or half an ounce of silver or whatever the hell that was backing that $100 bill. You'd have to, it would be convertible in the sense that all of the money would have the value of all of the materials and the society would function, but you wouldn't have that. And we would have so back in 2003, 4, and 5, the data was describing a period where we would have to have governmental controls on strategic materials such as silver, just to keep the society humming along. And that's where we're at now, keep the society humming along, only it's going to be doing it ever so much better because we're eliminating the influence of the narco cartels. And so there's the good guy versus the bad guy war, and that's really the dominant meme that's going on here. So no, Trump did not bomb a sovereign nation. Venezuela was captured, just like Washington State. Trump can come up here and kick ass all he wants because we're a captured state. Probably a lot of people that help him kick ass too. Anyway, though, and so that's the way it is, right? You can't claim sovereignty from Venezuela. They had a president that they voted out, and he refused to leave, and he was kept in power by armed thugs. Anyway, and they exported that, right? Anyway, so I got to get some stuff done here, but we're at that point. This is the point of the follow-on, the roll-off of the effects everywhere. We're going to see that fake money is no longer power, right? Fiat currency is dying. Silver and gold are basically going to end up being go back to the old mainstay. So if you're willing to get involved in the stock market, and know what the fuck you're doing, if we were close to replicating a depression scenario like we did in the 30s, which I don't think, right, for a lot of reasons, I don't think we'll go that route. But if we were close there, the thing to do would be to invest in gold and silver, copper, and nickel, other mining companies. Because then you have exposure to the underlying metals, right? And they're going to do well. In the 1930s, they were the only class of stocks that held their value through that long depression into the war, and they were very worth having. Financial system is in the process of dismantling and the discovery of how much is corruption and the replacement of it all. This is not going to be a quick process. We can expect this to go on for a dozen years or more. Not as volatile or as visible as we're going to see it this year and next year. And we're going to see, though, that the entire structure of voting around the planet starts changing. How many of the fucktards in England or, throughout the EU were actually voted in by the populace? Probably not that many. How will they feel when their names start linked? And that's why all of them are really freaked out, by the way, that Trump did this, because they know that. They know where their votes were shoveled in from. I guess that's it. Anyway, fun day. Going to be a very energetic year. And examine the biases of the people that are going to be complaining, because even though it's not obvious, they may be connected to a lot of this stuff. But happy 2026.